Okay, well, good morning, and thank you for taking the opportunity to hear some of the work that the Corps of Engineers does. I thought I'd first start off just a little bit of history. The Army Corps of Engineers is 2 days younger than the Army itself. So the Army birthday is coming up. It's on 14 June, and it was started in 1775, and the Corps of Engineers just 2 days later on 16 June 1775. So for almost 239 years, the Corps of Engineers has been serving the country. You're here in Washington, D.C., and there's many things that you see that you may not associate with the Corps of Engineers. But the Washington Monument, for example, is something the Corps of Engineers built. The dome on the Capitol building, the old Executive Office building, all of the water that you drink, except for bottled water, of course, but the water that you drink in Washington, D.C. is water that's produced at the National Aqueduct. The Washington Aqueduct that the Corps of Engineers run. So we do a wide variety of tasks and missions, and we have 33,000 civilians in the Corps of Engineers. Most people think it's a military organization. It is a military organization with a lot of civilians. So there are only 700 soldiers in the Corps of Engineers that wear this uniform, but 33,000 civilians. So largely a civilian organization with deep expertise in training and engineering services. Our expertise runs the gamut from engineering, construction, and science, and it's broad and deep. Much of our expertise is dedicated to the civil and the military infrastructure development and sustainment, but we also do a lot of work in research and development. We have 7 laboratories all across the country, and some of our scientists and engineers are world-renowned in some of the areas that they work in. We execute different missions, military construction, host nation-funded construction, foreign military sales, humanitarian assistance, and disaster preparedness and response projects in 22 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, including the Republic of Korea, Japan, India, China, and Vietnam, to name a few. In the Republic of Korea, the Corps is administering 2 large programs, the Yongsan Relocation Plan, also called YRP, and the Land Partnership Plan, LPP. When completed, the 2 programs will enable the return of land to the Republic of Korea and the relocation of approximately 12,000 U.S. troops to Camp Humphreys from Yongsan Garrison and from multiple locations north of Seoul. In addition, the Corps is executing construction and supporting construction of modern facilities in which the U.S. forces will work, train, and live. And new family housing will enable our service members to bring some of their families to Korea that they might not have been before in what we call accompanied tours. When completed, the Army Corps of Engineers will have overseen construction of 655 new and renovated facilities. This is the largest single activity in scope and scale that we currently have underway when it comes to military construction. In Japan, the Army Corps of Engineers is conducting quality surveillance of construction and movement of more than 170 buildings and facilities on Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni. This work will allow the carrier air wing from the USS George Washington to relocate from Naval Air Station Atsugi down to Iwakuni. We're also ensuring that the replacement facility for the Marine Corps Air Station Fatima at Camp Schwab is built to our criteria. The scope of work includes 200 projects that will be executed through the year 2022, and it will reduce the overall U.S. military footprint in Okinawa. Farther west at Ghaziabad in India, the Corps is managing the construction of a C-17 facility for the Air Force Station Hindan. We're also assisting India with the procurement of infrastructure for C-17 transport aircraft as part of our foreign military sales program. The construction of the facilities began in 2012, and we expect to have them completed by the year 2016. These critically important projects for the Republic of Korea, Japan, and India demonstrate the many capabilities of the Army Corps of Engineers. It also helps to enable alliances and partnerships throughout the region, and it provides value to the international community. However, our capabilities extend beyond construction management and foreign military sales. We also have the ability to assist other nations in disaster response and preparedness as needed. In 2011, the Corps of Engineers closely worked with the U.S. Forces Japan and U.S. Army Japan to provide technical engineering support to the government of Japan in response to the Great East Japan earthquake. We provided technical expertise in the areas of terrain visualization using Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, flood damage assessments, and fault line analysis. Last year, as part of the annual U.S. and China Disaster Management Exchange, we hosted a Chinese delegation to visit and meet with our officials in Washington, D.C. and New York City. They discussed our response to Hurricane Sandy and ongoing efforts that we continue to do along the northeastern coast in response to Hurricane Sandy. And we have a reciprocal visit to China being planned for later this year. To help improve disaster preparedness in the region, the Army Corps of Engineers has provided technical expertise and assistance in the development of disaster response, exercise, and exchange events in the lower Mekong countries. By working and training together, we improve the capabilities of our countries while strengthening the partnership of our nations. Partnerships with U.S. government agencies such as the Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development, as well as agreements within Southwest Asia that have assisted in the successful completion of hundreds of humanitarian assistance projects in Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam. Since 2007, the Corps has completed 34 projects in Vietnam, including the construction of schools, medical clinics, and emergency operations centers. Currently, we have 8 ongoing projects in Vietnam. In conclusion, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers continues to support the Asia-Pacific region with a full range of planning, engineering and design, and construction management, as well as technical assistance services. We're agile, we're very quick, we can adapt to just about any environment, and using the collective military and civil expertise, we feel like we can take on our nation's toughest challenges and other challenges in the international community as well. So we welcome the opportunities to work in the international community. We have ongoing work in 132 different countries. We're physically present in over 40 countries, and we look forward to that continued partnership. So I'll leave it there and open it up to questions from each of you.
We'll go around the table, starting with Mr. Chen.
Hi, General Chen Weihua, China Daily. I'm a little confusing. I mean, is your cooperation with China considered part of the military-to-military cooperation, or, because obviously I read you cooperated with the Chinese Ministry of Water Resources, so it's a military to civilian. I don't know how this is. That a U.S. counterpart, which is, I don't know, Ministry of Transportation, Department of Transportation, is like working with you in collaboration with China. What is this MOU you are working on with China is about, the Ministry of Water Resources? What exactly are you going to achieve with China?
Much of our work is through the Department of State. So we work with the Department of State, we work with U.S. Army Pacific Command led by General Brooks, and in the Pacific Command led by Admiral Locklear. We work through them and their staffs to help achieve their objectives in different parts of the Asia Pacific. In China, we both have a mutual interest in water resource management. So our participation, our engagement with China is not necessarily from a mill-to-mill type relationship, although both military and civilian from the U.S. will engage with China from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. One of my deputies engaged in China, and one of my senior civilians has been there. So it is a military-civilian engaging with China, for the purpose of better sharing ideas on water resource management areas. And that could be anything from water supply, navigation, work in ports, flood risk management. Those sorts of things are areas of mutual concern. It could also be disaster response, and that's what China came to the United States to better understand how the international community and how the United States responded to Superstorm Sandy.
Follow up?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about you have a reciprocal visit to China. I mean, later this year, are you going or some? What are you going to see? And the other is, do you have cooperation with the sort of the Chinese counterpart? I know Chinese have a large sort of corps of engineers which build this railway in Tibet. All these. Do you cooperate with them?
You mean transportation?
No, the PLA have a huge army of, doing construction work. I mean, like they build this old, long, big plateau railway.
The last visit was primarily with the Minister of Water Resources, and it was focused on the Yangtze, the dams, the Three Gorges dams, and their ports, and really sharing lessons learned. I was invited to go about 2 years ago, and my schedule did not allow me to go. I'm sure that I will be invited again, and as we start working this next visit, and I would love to go over, and the purpose again would be to help the United States from a strategic perspective in our engagement strategy, and then from a tactical operational perspective, it's for the United States and China to learn from each other in water resources management. And in terms of the railway and working with their military engineers, we haven't pursued that. But as a soldier, I would love to work with the military in terms of where we can learn lessons from each other on how engineers operate in both of our countries.
Thank you for this opportunity. In terms of emergency preparedness, what do you think of the recently Korean ferry sinking accident? We collaborated with each other quite well, but there are so many, the victims this time. So could you respond to the accident first, and then what should we do to prevent that kind of accident? Thank you.
Well, first, my thoughts and prayers go out to those that have lost loved ones and to the country of Korea. But this is not my area of expertise. All I could offer is that in our areas of expertise, whenever our nation calls or whenever the international community calls, if there's some technical assistance that we could offer, working through the State Department and working through U.S. Army Pacific and the Pacific Command, we would be happy to provide any assistance that we could provide. I'm not really in a position where I could comment on the accident specifically, but what I will say is what our nation and what the international community does very well is that when a nation is in need in times of disaster, it's all hands in from the perspective of the United States and other countries. We have responded to disasters worldwide, and we have benefited in the United States from the international assistance that we have received when we have a disaster here in our country. So I think going forward in the future, if asked, the Corps would be very supportive of providing the kind of assistance, for example, that we did in the Japan earthquake.
Yeah, thank you very much for the precious time. And you have said that from 2007 you have done 34 projects in Vietnam and 8 projects now is going on. So could you give us some very simple projects that you have done or you are doing now in Vietnam? Is that the water management in the city of Hue or in the Mekong River?
Well, I will say on the lower Mekong River, there's a partnership that we have with the Lower Mekong Commission. And that commission has been over here several times, and my team from the Mississippi Valley Division has been over to the Lower Mekong countries, and we have learned from each other. We have had significant issues on the Mississippi, for example, with both floods and droughts, in how we reduce the risk to our populations through the infrastructure that we've built is very important for our country, and it's very important in the Lower Mekong. So we're trying to share those lessons. So we've had them on our boats, we've had them up and down our inland waterways, and I think all of those countries, including Vietnam, has learned quite a bit, and our leaders that have gone to Vietnam have learned as well. But and I can follow up with you with the exact type of projects that are ongoing now in Vietnam. We've got, I said we had 8, but the types of projects we have done in the past have been the schools and the medical clinics and those sorts of facilities. So I would imagine they're the type of facilities that are similar to that. But we can follow up with you and get the exact type of each of the 8.
And Vietnam, as you know, that is a heavily flood-damaged country, from the north to the south and the central as well. So in that area, the Corps of the engineers could help Vietnam in that area when we ask for the help. And we have flood-damaged country from the north to the south and central. So we need a lot of help from different countries, including U.S. So have you got any requests to help us in that area?
Right. Our request for assistance generally comes through this Lower Mekong Commission, and that has been in the area of technical assistance. So, for example, General DeLuca, who commands my Mississippi Valley Division, is responsible for the Mississippi and in ensuring that we reduce the risk of floods to the people along there. He and his team visited Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos and that entire area. And from a technical assistance, we can provide assistance. In terms of construction, we're not involved in the construction of levees, for example, or dams and that sort of thing, nor have we been asked, to my knowledge. But it's another question I can follow up on. But to my knowledge, most of our work is providing technical assistance in the expertise of water resource management.
Mm-hmm. And so far, you have building facilities like civilians facilities only, not for the military infrastructures. So we have a Cam Ranh Bay in the central Vietnam that we also have planned to upgrade it to meet the rising demand. So are you happy to take part in that project in the future? I mean, the Cam Ranh Bay, maybe you heard about that.
Could you tell me about the project again?
The Cam Ranh Bay in the central Vietnam. We may have a plan to upgrade it to meet the rising demand in the future.
Well, one of the things I always say in the Corps of Engineers, even in the United States, we don't make the decision to build anything. The Congress of the United States authorizes us to do a certain project based on what the American people want, and then the Congress appropriates the funds in order for us to do that work. Once they do that, we're very happy. Not only happy, it's a mission we must do, and we will do it to the best of our ability. Similarly, in the international community, if the international community had work that it would like the Corps of Engineers to do, working through the proper officials, whether that's the State Department, we do work through USAID, for example, the U.S. Agency for International Development. if the work came through those channels or through PACOM in the U.S. Army Pacific and was directed to us as a mission that they wanted us to do, then the Corps would be happy to support that mission.
So do you have a...
Can we move on to
Yes,
the next?
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for
Yeah.
your time. Mike, I have two quick questions. One is about our base relocation and alignment in Okinawa and other parts of the Asia Pacific, specifically Guam. I see a lot of reports about the expansion of the infrastructure, military infrastructure in Guam, not necessarily going ahead as planned. And as you know very well, expansion of the Guam facilities is very important for the Marine Corps Tenma Air Station's relocation to Henoko if there's no more local opposition, which is a very critical issue anyway. But even if there's no opposition on the side of Okinawa, we still need Guam facility to be completed for the relocation from Tenma to be done in a new place. Could you, if you can, update on the status of the Guam project so far? And the second question is about the tension in the East and South China Sea. Because of that, the government of Japan is making arrangements for its self-defense forces to do training for the recovery of some islands in case they are being occupied by some foreign forces. Do you exchange any information or expertise in this area, for example, for the planning of that kind of contingencies? That's it.
First to the Guam facilities, while that's related to what might happen in Futema, in Okinawa, I'm not involved in, the Corps of Engineers is not involved in the Guam construction, so I really don't have information that I can pass on to you on that. And to your second question, we do not, the Corps of Engineers is not involved in exchanging information in the manner that you describe.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, and thanks for the Foreign Press Center for organizing this. In your opening remarks, you mentioned about C-17 Vedant project in Ghaziabad.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, and also if there are other joint projects that you're working with India on C-17 transportation aircraft? And finally, do you have any? What kind of interaction do you have with your Indian counterparts, Indian Corps and Engineer Services?
I didn't understand.
What kind of
that.
interaction or engagement do you have with your Indian counterparts?
Okay. On the ground, we have frequent engagements. I have authorized for our civilians to be assigned and working in India to oversee the quality of this C-17 bed-down facility. So as you know, the India purchased C-17s, and those C-17s are inbound to India, and we are working vigorously to keep up the schedule so that these bed-down facilities where the C-17s will go will be completed in time for the arrival of those facilities. We believe we'll finish the facility construction in 2016. The construction has no issues currently. My Pacific Ocean Division commander, General Rick Stevens, was just in India to see the construction site and the ongoing construction and to interact with some of the leaders in India. So I think on the ground we've got the right people. We have a great relationship with the team on the ground from India and the contractor, and the work is on schedule. So the aircraft may come in sooner than the construction is completed, but in terms of the construction, we're moving as quickly as we can to expedite where we can.
And about the kind of interaction you have with your Indian counterparts?
The interaction is quite well.
I mean,
My
do you have
personal
any other-
interaction, I have not been to India. It's one of the trips I plan to take. But at the local and regional level, I have a general officer that is responsible to Admiral Locklear and General Brooks for the Asian Pacific area of responsibility. So he interacts regularly with the countries in the Asia Pacific region, and therefore he would interact and has a good relationship with the leaders that he would normally interact with in India.
In fact, my question was if you have any other projects that's going on or are in the pipeline in India.
I would have to follow up with you on that. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to see, I mean, have you met this Chinese delegation from Three Gorges Corporation? You know, what they're interested, if you know, I mean, about the dams and the locks in the U.S., obviously. I mean, the Three Gorges Dam is gorgeous, but it's also controversial in some way. I mean, also this U.S.-China disaster management exchange annually. Do you participate? I mean, what is it about? I mean, this is under the SNED, the Strategic Economic Dialogue, or what? Do you know?
In terms of the delegation from China and why they would come and why we would go there and the interest in Three Gorges, I think from a leader's standpoint, we're always interested in learning new techniques and also learning challenges that other nations might have. In our country, we have some dams that we are very old, and we're working to ensure that we reduce the risk on those dams through the best engineering that we can apply. China is interested in that as well, and then because they've built new dams, we're interested in what lessons they've learned. I know they have some challenges with the Three Gorges dams, and I think with any type of infrastructure construction, they certainly come with challenges. But that's part of why we meet, is to understand in what each country is going through, and if there is a method for us to help each other, then we help. A lot of our work is work that comes up directly from the country through the State Department to the Corps of Engineers. It is often one-on-one type work that sometimes is part of a larger program, but sometimes may not be. And the work with China is work that because of the reputation that the Corps of Engineers has in disaster management and in water resource management, we are reached out quite frequently by other countries to engage with them, and that's part of what has happened with China.
Okay.
Sure.
No, sorry. YRP and LPP.
Mhm.
Would you update the two plans so far, and what's your priority to complete two plans? And actually, we had a new special measure agreement a couple of months ago. So, and there are some argument that the U.S. should be more transparent about the SMA. I mean, the cost defense, shared cost. What do you think about that? And we recently started to talk about the reviewing the wartime off-gun transfer. Do you think that kind of review, the time delay, will affect the two plans, I mean the YRP and LPP in the future? And maybe will it affect the SMA in the future? Thank you.
Can you? The SMA is really outside my area of responsibility,
Okay.
so I'm going to
Yeah, but
focus
it's
on.
related. You know,
Okay,
the
can you-
cost share and two plans. I mean the share cost
Okay, can
share.
you explain again
The special
the question?
measurement? I mean it's okay. So the first one is would you update the two plans so far?
Okay, let me do
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
then we'll go on to the
Okay,
next one.
thank you.
Um, this is one of the more complicated arrangements of managing
Right.
this project that the Corps is involved in. The Corps is working with the Minister of Defense. We're also working with a civilian contractor, and we're working with the forces in Korea, with the forces in Korea overall in charge, of course, and General Scaparrotti working with the Minister of Defense, leading this effort. So despite the challenges, we feel that we're making good progress. Overall, if you look at YRP and LPP, we feel that we're at 42% execution. We're a little less in YRP and a little bit ahead of that in LPP. YRP, we feel we've executed about 36%, in LPP at about 54%. So overall, 42% executed. And we think we're on track to finish this huge mission in about 2017. There are some negotiations going on in terms of movement of troops and when those movement of troops will occur, but I'm going to leave that to the leaders in Korea to address. Does that answer your?
Yeah, the
okay,
first one.
Then-
And the wartime, the off-con transfer, in the summit,
Right.
President Obama and President Park Geun-hye started to talk about the reviewing the wartime off-con transfer, and there are some speculation that if we delay the wartime off-con again, it will affect the SMA agreement or two plans that you are dealing with. So, do you agree with that opinion?
I really don't know. I don't have enough details on that part of the ongoing discussions to offer whether it would delay or not. I know the timeline we're on. I know the expectations that we have to deliver as in our role of ensuring the quality of the work, but there are many different variables in this equation, and I think for something like that question, it would really require someone in Korea that's overseeing the entire work and the operations to address.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional question. Thank you. About your projects in Iwakuni, could you update me on how it's going? Are you foreseeing any difficulties, or is everything going smoothly as planned? I do see some reports about, some local residents opposing to the construction of some housing units for U.S. troops. I don't know how big was the opposition, but I appreciate if you could update that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you also, sorry, second question. You also mentioned about the U.S.-Japan cooperation, Kobe Engineers Cooperation with Japan in time of disaster, 2011. 2011. Do you have any new projects coming out of this cooperation we had back then? So,
Yeah. I was at Iwakuni about a year and a half ago, and it was going very, very well at that time, and it is going exceedingly well now. I was just shown a picture that updated the status of Iwakuni, and as you know, we built that airfield out in the water and all the facilities on the installation, but the work in Iwakuni, in my mind, is going very, very well, and I think the people of Japan would be proud of what is happening there, and I commend the Japanese in the construction and our workers, our USACE employees, for what they're doing. As to the disaster response based on what we did for the great earthquake of Japan, we're great partners with Japan in terms of disaster response. In fact, this Saturday, I'm going to the Netherlands, and these are world leaders that come together in the area of disaster response when it comes to water-related disasters. The Japanese are leaders in that area, and we work with them very closely. So from a technical assistance, constantly engaged, constantly working these kind of issues, I don't think we could have a better partnership than we have with the Japanese. So, but in terms of specific projects and work that they've asked us to do, I'd have to follow up with you on that, but I don't think there's anything that's ongoing since the earthquake.
And you also mentioned the cooperation in the field of fault line analysis.
Right.
And this is something pretty looked upon, I think, in Japan because the ongoing review of the safety of nuclear power plants all over the country. Do you know if this technology, I don't know if you offer some suite of technology to the Japanese side or how the exchange happened, but anyway, do you think the particular knowledge or technology you have in this fault line analysis is being utilized on the Japanese side and beyond disaster response?
No, I really can't say how the Japanese are using it. I do believe it was very helpful at the time we provided it in making analysis of what dangers might be imminent based on the earthquake that just occurred. But whether it has long-term use in Japan, I really can't answer.
I see. So going back to the time right after the disaster, are you aware of any cases, instances, where the Japanese side or U.S. forces in Japan were able to avoid secondary accident disasters because of the analysis you provided to them?
No, I can't really say. Generally, what this type of analysis, whether it's in earthquakes or fault lines or flood inundation, the real response in many of these cases are evacuation, and whether they evacuated anyone from an area based on this analysis, it would be hard for me to kind of say that. Even here in the States, when we evacuated parts of New York City and New Jersey, there are a lot of different factors that come into the decision of a governor or mayor to evacuate. Technical analysis is just one of those many factors. So it's hard to correlate, even if they did evacuate folks, that the reason was because of what we may have provided.
I do remember the trouble you had not back in 2005 or something, when Katrina hit the southern part of the country.
Right.
You did have something in analysis in the plans, but
Right, but we didn't
Everything
have the
didn't,
evacuation. Yeah, so even when you provide it, and they may not evacuate.
We have time for one or two
Can
more
I
questions.
ask one more? Go ahead.
A small
Sorry.
one. I know you have not traveled to India and planning to do so in the near future, but based on the experience you have had with having interaction with the Indians, can you tell us, can you give us an insight into the areas in which you could be of help to the Indians?
Yeah, well, I have traveled to India. I haven't traveled as the chief of engineers,
Okay.
but I have been there, and I think it's a great country. I've studied with a lot of engineers from India. It's a wonderfully advanced country in many respects, and their engineers are some of the brightest, I think, in the world. So I think where we can best help is where India feels it has a need. I mean, the Corps of Engineers can do things in many, many different areas of engineering construction, or in research and development. And I think for the country of India, it's really their decision, or any other country, to advise on what they can provide. And what I would say is we provide great water resource management expertise, if that is necessary. But to any country, that is one of our strengths. We are very good in research and development in many areas. We do a lot of work in the environment, environmental issues that our nation is wrestling with, other nations are wrestling with as well. And of course, we're good in construction and have built some of the best facilities that house our soldiers and our civilians here throughout the United States. So any one of those areas. I think the first step is probably to continue to have the dialogue with countries to see where needs may not be met, and if those needs can be met by an organization like the Corps of Engineers. And if so, we'd be happy to support.
Thank you.
So talking about the Sayaburi Dam in Laos construction, so you said that the construction that would hurt badly the environment in the area that have millions of people living there. So what is the comment on the construction of the Sayaburi Dam?
I can't comment on that dam in particular, but we wrestle with this as well in the United States, where it's not an either-or that you build a dam for water resource management or you take care of the environment and the ecosystem. I think it's both. We have to manage both. I don't think in some areas you can say we're just not going to have a dam. If you are having problems with floods, if you're having problems with drought, one of the tools that you have available is infrastructure like a dam that can control water supply. It can help alleviate the chance of floods by lowering that water supply and letting the rainwater go into the reservoir. But you also have to think about what it does to the environment. And what we do is we mitigate those damages, potential damages to the environment up front. For example, if you need wetlands, if you need to preserve farmlands, and how do you plan for that up front? And it becomes a significant cost to the dam that may not have anything to do with the structure of the dam itself. So I think you have to balance both, and I think Laos will have to do the same sort of thing if it's important to their country.
I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Can I ask a water forum? I heard you are going to Korea next year to attend the 7th World Water Forum.
Right.
What's your role in the forum, and what do you expect from it?
The World Water Forum. Yes, first I will go to the World Water Forum. It's in
Next
April
right.
of 2015. And the World Water Forum, part of the organizing group that works on this is the high-level expert panel. And the high-level expert panel brings expertise from the international community. And the Chief of Engineers, representing the Corps of Engineers, is on that panel. So as a member of the high-level expert panel, I would be there to participate. We had one in the UN where the World Water Council leaders were able to speak and provide thoughts and ideas on how we deal with water-related disasters across the world, and what are the impacts of climate change, and how do we adapt to be more resilient to climate change. Many of these types of topics are what we will be talking about in the international community in Korea.
Okay.
Okay,
all
thank you
for
very much.
attending. This event is now concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.